I'm not sure if that's plugged in actually. I don't think it'll work. Is it okay?
All right, we will call the meeting to order, the Skokie Public Library Board meeting for Wednesday, April 29th, 2025 at 6:31 p.m. Start out with any comments from observers. Susie, you said none were submitted. Do you wish to make a comment, Mark?
No, not yet anyway.
Okay, thank you. Then we move on. Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of March 12th, 2025. Any comments or edits from the board? If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 12th, 2025?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. On to the director's report. Richard?
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see all of you. So just not too many items here. One, I just wanted to mention Happy National Library Week. We've been sharing that news with patrons, obviously, online and in the building, and also trying to just do a few special things throughout the week for our staff, so our staff have enjoyed it and feel appreciated. Limerick board meeting I attended, that's just as a reminder, Limerick is the insurance pool that the library belongs to for health and dental and vision and etc. Coverages, and I just wanted to give a brief update on the types of things that they discussed with the rest of the board at the Limerick meeting. So nothing too urgent or anything yet to report, but I meet with them maybe 6 times a year, I would say, and there's always just kind of discussion about the renewals that are going to come up or planning for the renewal, and we work with our insurance brokers and our Limerick plan administrators, so it's been a good experience. I also attended the Illinois State Library Advisory Committee, which was in Springfield, and I think I've been on that committee for a few years now, and usually attend on Zoom, but I wanted to attend in person this time because we were talking about the news of what was happening to IMLS and the potential impact that we may have on the state library budget. So I explained just a little bit of what I heard and kind of confirmed at that meeting and potential impact to not just us, but local libraries and state libraries statewide, and also to our systems like Rails and Heartland. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of clarity. There's a lot of confusion and kind of chaos right now. So hopefully, I'm hoping for the best, but it's not looking good right now, for IMLS.
I have a question that's kind of secondary to this. Like tariff stuff is going very crazy right now, so I'm curious if that is impacting like book publishing at all, and if therefore that would impact the cost to obtain materials for libraries.
It's entirely possible.
Okay.
But we haven't seen it. It's just so recent, right?
Yes.
So, but it's something that I know our access services manager is thinking about for next year and watching for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I also have a quick question, maybe this was already stated in here, but is there anything that's immediate and direct in terms of impact, or is it kind of in this
Right
limbo
now,
state?
it's a bit of a limbo state right now, honestly. The funding that was expected for the fiscal year 25 allotment funding, the fiscal year 26 ISL budget,
Right.
was expected in a couple of weeks, and right now there are, with the staffing, paid administrative leave happening with IMLS, we're not sure who's there, honestly, to administer the grants and to the states, and so what the state library and the state will do, I'm not sure. There hasn't been an additional update from the state library director, as far as I've seen. I think people are just trying to figure out what's happening, and how to respond. So right now, I mean, nothing has ceased, like our rails, you know, and the systems of delivery hasn't ceased or anything like that, or, but, you know, we'll have to see what happens with not only that portion, which is really significant and important for libraries statewide, but also just smaller buckets of that funding going to, you know, continuing ed opportunities for library directors and trustees, public programming. Illinois Libraries Present, that whole public programming project was partially funded by the state library. So, you know, we'll have to see how it impacts actual statewide services. So, I'll provide more updates as I have them. So, but other than that, I really don't have much else to report this.
Any other questions, comments on the board? Hearing none, let's move on to the disbursement report, pages 6 through 17. Questions, comments there about the disbursements? If not, can I have a motion to approve the March 2025 disbursement report?
So moved.
Second.
Since it's spending, we have to do it individually. Mary?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Ula?
Yes.
Ella?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Thank you. On to the consent agenda, pages 9 through 46. Richard, you want to highlight?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I want to pull out, if you don't mind, the strategic update, and also I think it's always nice to hear from Laura about the long-time staff profiles. So, Nancy, do you want to? Nancy Kim Phillips, our Director of Community Engagement, is here, and Nancy's really the one who spearheads writing that strategic update report and helping just to coordinate all of our strategic priorities and our progress with them. So I work with Nancy, and Nancy works with everyone in the building really on this stuff. And obviously Susie works with Nancy on the actual report that you have in front of you. So hopefully you enjoyed reading that with all the photos in it too. But Nancy,
As with everything, nobody does anything alone.
right. Yeah. Nancy, do you want to just take if you don't mind, Jean, like a few minutes just to share whatever thoughts you may have, or?
Yeah, I would say overall, we moved from quarterly reports to reports twice a year. So the last time we did a strategic plan update was the November meeting. So some time has passed, and I would say that we are in a transition period. This strategic plan goes through 2026. And we had specifically structured it with like new internal terminology, calling it was with the 3 strategic focus areas, calling the areas underneath them current priorities, current strategic priorities, in order to allow us flexibility to say what else is happening in the community, you know, should we be focusing somewhere else, to say and not assume that every project or area would end at the same time.
Right.
So with that in mind, at the beginning of the year, we did review the current priorities. We had 7 up till now, and kind of looked at them from the perspective of, you know, where have we made progress? Have we changed the way we do certain things in the library? Yes, the recognition of employees, and you know, there's now a system for that, and different kinds of ways that we show appreciation. Are there places where we have allocated the resources to carry out whatever, you know, the current priority was? Yes, the Skokie Yearbook Project has a work group, we have a budget for it, we have a plan and a timeline. So, you know, that's underway. You know, it's like in language access an issue that, is so complex. But at this point, we have instituted 3 different things in terms of Pocket Talk for live interpretation, the Recite Me on the website so people can translate information that way, and a process for translating materials from English to other languages. So those are things that have been put in place, and we really just need to start figuring out what happens when we're using these on an ongoing basis and track that. But it's not a point yet to kind of keep adding on to that current priority. So new terminology is ongoing areas of development. These are things, with all of those that we're not finished per se, but there is a path in place. And so that allowed us to then also consider new opportunities, and we looked at the areas in the cultivating connectedness and belonging in particular, and partly based on the response that we got to the Volunteer Palooza and this idea of helping people to express their true lives, find purpose, and connection and involvement, that volunteerism in the community seemed like a way to help people accomplish that in the community. So that's going to be a new current priority, and also equipping community members with tools and ultimately opportunities for open conversations that encourage mutual respect and understanding. Something that we hear a lot about locally as well as nationally. And so we're going to build on some of the work that Annabelle has been doing around a particular model called Moral Courage. And work with groups, starting out with some existing groups and providing them with the tools, and then seeing where we go from there. And then several of the other priorities we looked at and we said, we're not quite there yet, but we've made some progress. Let's just revise some of the language based on what we've learned or where we think we are or how we're going to focus on it going forward. And so those will be reflected and reported on more next time. This report was really kind of where are we with the items that we've called current priorities up until now, and allowing each of the co-leads to have an opportunity to summarize what they've accomplished, what they've learned, different kinds of outcomes, and then where we're going forward. So if you have any questions about those, and I'm happy to answer.
I do have a couple questions. First of all, thank you so much for the updates in the strategic plan, because it was just so well written and understood so clearly on where we're aligning on the different priorities, which is really exciting to see all the things that, when you bullet point and write out all the initiatives that have really gone into supporting the strategic plan. I think it's very telling, right, of the hard work that everybody has been doing, so thank you for that. A couple of questions about the actual strategic plan. Do we have some place, and I don't know, maybe you might have them as admin, but I'd love to see kind of a graphic or a timeline of some sort, kind of see where we are and where we've accomplished certain aspects and areas or different priorities.
Like a progress.
Yeah, just kind of like an update in a visual form, because although I love the narratives as a reader,
It's quite long.
yes, which is fine. I think just having kind of a quick at a glance to see where we're at, so that we can kind of project out, since this is a plan that goes into next year, kind of what are the things that we need to do to wrap up? What are the things that maybe as we move into 2026, what are our priorities that we need to continue with, right? Because we definitely don't want to just throw everything out, but we want to continue to build. And knowing that we might not get to all of those things within a planned time frame.
I think that's a, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think the other piece of it that I just would want to kind of talk about too, the other point about the strategic plan is kind of how is the plan communicated out to staff? Because I think it's so important when the strategic plan committee has great ideas and we've decided as a committee that this is our vision, this is what our initiatives are. But how does everybody from one end of the library to the other end of the library know, and we're all riding in that same, we're going along for the ride together. So my question would just.
It's a really good question, and you already got my wheels turning on some of it. With the changes and the update and that sort of thing that I just shared with all of you, that was shared with all staff. The folks that are the co-leads for the groups. They represent different departments and different positions within the library. A number of them are on the management team, but not all. So we do share and ask for input as well with the management team, because then the managers, and they're also asked as part of this report, there are things that the co-leads are doing that are like identified initiatives that may cross over departments, but are there things that your department is doing? So in that regard, actually, I think we have more relied on managers and supervisors to work with their teams on, focusing on those. And so like program areas will look at that and say, how are we making connections? What are we doing with that? And that's where, like here's what the co-leads are doing, here's what's happening in the rest of the library, and that is because managers are working with their teams and their staff, so that people, hopefully what that means is that, people are not just going, oh, that's that small group over there, but there are ways that everyone can contribute. And I would say, especially in the healthy organization piece, that's been identified, for instance, quite a bit in different ways. And the training, the learning commons, some of those are because we're living them more. I think that's communicated. But it is a good question in terms of progress to everybody. And yeah.
I appreciate your questions and comments. I think you're making a great point. We have this long narrative format. I think part of that for me is because intentionally we haven't structured or designed our current priorities with just like you might see in traditional strategic plans where it's like a increased by X percent or percentile, or increased by X number of programs or books or whatever, and they are more kind of like written to be met with a narrative explanation, but I like your idea of like a summary type progress sheet, that can easily just be at a glance, see what we've done, and something maybe we can share with not only staff but with the public. And yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
That's going to be my question about sharing the status with the public, because I know we post the strategic plan on the website, but other than that, I don't know if we have ongoing conversations with our community about all the amazing things that we're doing to really measure against that.
We use the annual.
I saw the annual one. I saw it on LinkedIn. Made sure I gave it a big thumbs up. But that was, the annual summary. I didn't know if we gave regular updates, and I do appreciate that we're doing it biannually rather than quarterly, because I think it's a little bit more meaty. So I don't know if there could be an opportunity to be like a halfway through the year.
We also, we built in this planning cycle something that we haven't done before, which is to do a check-in, community conversations about what our priorities are. Does that still resonate with people? Because we start the whole process by having community conversations.
Right.
And we, hope that we are, capturing like the themes from that when we develop our strategic areas. So last year we did in the fall kind of share these are our current priorities. Do they still resonate with you? You know, here's what some things that the library is doing. Are there areas that you don't think we're covering? So we had 2 conversations that were extremely well attended by community partners. And they were like, let's do this more. So I have some community conversations planned in my, right here, right now. And we did 2 with the public, and actually I think, Jean, you raised a question, I think, the last time I was here, but it was more of a, in the newsletter, and so people who are really like, yes, I want to talk about the library strategic plan.
Right.
Because they're super, users.
Yeah.
They came and, even pointed out specific programs. Oh yeah, that program next week, that's gonna fit under like those kind of people came. I love those kinds of people. But I think that looking forward from that too, that we should, I would like to be a little bit more thoughtful of how we reach out to different community members in the same way we do when we start the process.
Hello, you have a comment?
Yes, I had a question. In regard to communication to the staff, are there other opportunities for you to communicate information to staff in person outside of staff day? So are there quarterly meetings that are full staff meetings where the library closes for like an hour, maybe 2 hours to provide updates?
We don't do that. We don't close the library for updates like that in staff meetings, but we have monthly, any staff member can come to the monthly dialogue with Donex meetings, and I'm there, and I often talk about what the strategic work that we're doing. But I also provide opportunities for the people who are in attendance at those meetings to share their contributions towards our, in pursuit of our current priorities. So it's not everyone, to be honest. It's something we can think about, like I know other libraries have in the past like closed or opened an hour late or something, or
closed an
it's
hour
just,
early.
yeah, I mean, it's something we can think of for sure. Historically, we've stayed away from that just because it's a good problem, right? Like we're a library that at 9 a.m. the parking lot is full, and it's disruptive potentially to the public if we open late, but periodically maybe it is something we can pursue.
Maybe even twice a year, but
Yeah.
I think it provides opportunity for the staff who it's not as accessible for them to get away from if they're front desk, if they're frontline customer service, or if they work an odd shift or something.
Yeah.
If we were to say, okay, twice a year, we're gonna have a delayed opening, and we publish that in advance, so maybe not this year, but moving forward, something to think about is, on these 2 days of the year, we will have a delayed opening on one end, because we know we have part-timers who may not start until the evening hours or the afternoon, and close an hour early one day, and these are just something to think
I
about.
like that idea, yeah, we can think about like different ways to do something like that, and we're also planning a second staff day this year later in September, and we can definitely plan to do, we love them too. We can, that would give us more opportunity to carve out time to intentionally update on the strategic priorities.
And you're doing 2 staff days moving forward, or this is just?
That's what the plan has
Okay.
been.
So
Since
that
last
means-
year, we were planning 2 a year.
They serve
Yeah,
as
we
the
just had one
opportunity.
earlier this month, a couple months ago, and then, so we're thinking maybe September would be a good.
That may serve as the opportunity as well.
Yeah,
We already have a
yeah.
preference of staff.
Yeah.
It's also usually the practice at staff day that we have departmental meetings, and for some departments, for the reasons you just mentioned, they never have a chance to have meetings, and that's a really good time for all of them to sit down together, and maybe it's not going through the whole strategic plan, but there are chances there to highlight pieces that affect their work, or how their work affects those pieces and those priorities. So yes, it's an excellent opportunity to do that.
But I want to be clear about my hope is that the staff who don't get an opportunity to engage with senior administration and leadership are given an opportunity beyond just the departmental level to discuss the strategic plan. for their voices to be heard at the very top, because they're the ones who are the boots on the ground and, you know, are more closely integrated with the community and the public and like the actual inner workings from that 500-foot level as opposed to the 30,000-foot level, right? So just an opportunity for those staff members who may not get FaceTime with you all as administrators and leadership to have that FaceTime and feel valued and heard by the people at the top.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. We'll can definitely do better, of course, and I think our dialogue with donuts is clearly been communicated as anyone, like our supervisors and managers make it a practice to make sure to free up staff who are like pages and a public service assistant to come up and participate in those, you know, and I'm always there for those and directly answering any questions that they pose and sharing information from my perspective, but we can definitely do better and more.
Not better, just a different way.
We can do more.
It's a different way.
No, I don't mean.
Is the conversation that you're not doing a very, I don't know.
No, I don't take it that way. No, I meant.
I want to be very clear that I'm not saying your job. I'm just saying it's a different way.
I appreciate that. I didn't hear it that way. I meant that we can do other things to enhance what we're doing. So.
I also wanted to build off of what Ella and others said. So the strategic plan goes to 2026, and I guess at some point soon, I assume, we're going to be considering it maybe.
Well, I consider 2026 the full year of 2026, so, you know, when in 2026 is to be determined, you know. But.
So my point there being is that, like, at what, you know, the involvement of, you know, brainstorming and so on and so forth, going to the next strategic plan. I would hope and assume that staff would be included in that in some way, and so that would be another opportunity for participation.
Board members are also included, so.
Yeah, board members, we always invite 2 board members to participate, and then we have over the years, I don't know how many strategic plans have I been here for, maybe, was it 4 or something, but we've gotten better and better and kind of evolved our planning process, and to your point, we have obviously a committee, but we also try to really involve other staff as well and give everyone a chance to participate, but like I said, with everything, I feel like we're always learning and enhancing and evolving, so I appreciate the comment,
A couple of things I also wanted to mention as far as the strategic plan is that, you know, it just seems like 2023 to 2026 came really fast. It's like, I don't know if there was ever a thought to maybe extend it to a 4 or 5 year plan, just because it seems like the turnaround time on that is fairly quick. So just something to think about as you start to develop, you know, your next committee work for that. And then I do appreciate that there are some things that there isn't a specific itemized plan by plan, that it is more like a working document as long as it connects staff. Because I think for the work that's being done in this community and for our organization, there really does need to be a little bit more of that flexibility based on the needs of what's happening within the community, so I do appreciate that. And then the other piece that I just wanted, I guess I have a couple more. The dialogue with donuts, does that happen at different times during the day? So you even might have it like in the evenings?
We've tried that, we do it more, usually we do two sessions. One earlier in the day in the morning maybe, and one late afternoon-ish. We tried the evening sessions, they weren't really attended as much, you know, so we kind of, I think nowadays we've been doing more of the afternoon, morning combo.
And we rotate the day of the week, so it's not always on Monday or something, so a lot of people.
That's good. And then the other piece I wanted to say was I really am so happy to see that there's so many things that are being done as far as translations, interpretations, right? I think that is just so key in this community. So I'm so glad to see that you're building in also time when you're looking at rolling out a program and building in as part of the front work in order to get all of those materials into print that or, interpretation or translations that are going to be for that key demographic, I think is so important. So I'm really glad to see that that's,
Thank you.
I wanted to pick
at
up
the forefront.
because I agree, given our talking about the importance of reaching out to the community who don't come, that those services seem essential. Do you have any idea how often the services are being accessed? Are people satisfied with the quality of the translation and interpretations? Do we have any sense of that?
The thing we've talked about most recently with Recite Me is that it gets the most use from actual desktop, which indicates probably folks utilizing it when they're in the library and like using the catalog stations, not as much utilization on mobile, but we're going to float the icon for it so that as you're scrolling on a mobile device, it's always there, you don't just like move past it. So, but I'm not familiar with what the specific stats are.
What about, I don't know if you meant just the website, but or a program,
No, I meant all of our,
like some of our programs in different
we have
languages.
the tool.
Yeah. I don't know the stats about the Pocket Talk at some of the service points either, but in terms of programming, we're very much in a like exploratory stage. Some of the programs have a good turnout, some of them have no turnout. So, trying to learn about how we better promote and is a program really the best delivery format. But can I share summer reading sneak peek?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're working
I
on
think it's
this year,
mentioned
and yes, it is mentioned in here, but we are piloting having the summer reading booklet in 3 languages. All in one booklet, so there's no like different for different language speakers. In English, Spanish, and Urdu. And we chose Spanish and Urdu based on families, patrons who we see utilizing the library, but typically not involving themselves in summer reading, because they're not necessarily reading in English. So we decided to test it out with folks we already know use the library, interact with staff, make sure that like hand sell, they know it's for them, and then with what we learn, build from there.
Is that the booklet?
Yes. Composition notebook.
That is so cute, I love it.
Yeah.
To complement that, as far as like our collections for Spanish and Urdu, like are those going to have, I guess, what's the status of those and have we continued to build those and are we thinking about, and I'm sure you are, but I'd love to hear about it, just kind of the placement of it and accessibility of those resources and books.
Yeah, certainly very active collections, always like new materials and assessing for the condition. Laura can talk more about that, but all of our activity sheets, including things that talk about like what type of a reader are you, all of those are going to be translated and be able to direct you to places where collections are. And a big piece is for, anyone who's a school child in Skokie is learning to read in English, but the like preschool age kids who are participating in summer reading, if their grown-ups are reading with them at home and they don't read in English, they read in Spanish or Urdu, we're gonna have summer reading prize books in Spanish and Urdu as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I wanted to touch on something you said, which I think is super important. I liked that you talked about learning from, like trying things and learning. And obviously you're not going to put in the report, oh, we tried this and it didn't work. But I think it would be great to, at some point, I don't know if it was part of the annual thing, to even have conversations about those things that didn't work as you thought, and what were the takeaways and how is that going to be applied for the future plans.
Right.
I only say that just because I worked on a lot of like strategic things in the corporate world, and I feel like some of the biggest learnings and the biggest takeaways are often from when things didn't go the way you thought they would go. And I just feel like that could be a huge learning opportunity to move the library forward.
Yeah.
I think there are some of those kind of built into the what we've learned,
Okay.
but it's not written in a way that says,
Right.
yeah, nobody came to this,
Yeah.
or, and that's why,
for sure.
you know.
And obviously I said, you're not gonna put that, because obviously this is supposed to be like, look at everything we're doing and like celebrating all that. I just would say, don't be afraid to, because I don't think I don't see it as a failure. I don't think other people see it as failure. I think it's just such a tremendous opportunity to learn and to grow. So I just think that those are the best ways to learn.
I'll say in terms of, going back to your question, Jean, and what are we seeing in terms of people's response to some of these, this is where, like, we've got these things, now we need to start, collecting information and checking and seeing, and we have data that can be gained from Recite Me and that sort of thing. I think we have a form for staff who use the Pocket Talk. So that's kind of where we are with those, but then as we learn, and some of the learning is, okay, like, we have a program that's going to be in Spanish, and we get it in the newsletter, but if people who read only Spanish don't usually read the newsletter because it's mostly in English, or our emails and that sort of thing, they kind of know that, well, it's all in English, if they even are realizing that, then they may not even know when the programs are available or the services are available. So those are other things that we're both learning, but those questions come up too. Gosh, we're doing all this work for that. Do the right people know? How do we help them know? So we use some of our community connections as well, which is more of an informal network, but surely there are a lot more people, that could benefit than, so we're kind of building the services, and now it's sort of like, okay, do people know about this? How do we make sure that happens too? So all the translation, that we're doing for summer reading, I think is going a little bit deeper than other things that we have done.
Thank you.
This is really cute.
Keep the secret.
I almost put my name here, but I did not.
Well, that's still technically the mock-up, so.
Oh boy, that's a good thing I did that right.
But wait till you see the t-shirt, that's all I'm gonna say.
I think Mary wants to put that in her bag and take it.
I know,
Yeah.
I won't.
Keep your eye on Mary.
Laura, in the meantime, Laura, you want to tell us about the service awards for our fine staff?
You might see some familiar faces this month. Lee's not here, but Susie and Amy are. I just wanted to highlight that all three of them in the last decade have worked a variety of different positions in the library, have worked up to different levels, and have really made an impact in only 10 short years. I say short because we obviously have people who've been here for 40 years, so, but I think their stories and the different things that they've gone through are similar to what many of our staff have experienced who have been here for a long time, so it was very illustrative of that. And yeah, we appreciate all their work. And I wanted to add further conversation about informing staff about what we're doing. This priority area obviously lent itself very well to communicating lots of things to staff. These profiles each month, we send out an email to all staff saying these are your colleagues that we're highlighting this month. We also have a page on our intranet where all of them are gathered. We started in the last month, I believe, we started having department highlights. So we had drop-in sessions where you could come and learn all about what one specific work group does, what kind of work do they do, what roles are in that department. You could ask questions. We compiled all that. That's also on our intranet, so staff can access frequently asked questions about the work group, who's in there, it has their pictures and which positions there are in that group. There's that, and then we also have instituted the Values in Action Award. Those go up on our intranet, but they also are printed out and hung up in the staff hallway, so everyone who's coming in can see them. So we've really tried hard with this one to get out as much information as we can as we celebrate our entire staff.
More questions for Amy.
Yeah.
You said that working in the library hasn't always matched up to the money. So in what ways has it matched up to the money? Tell me there in the library.
Yeah, well, there have been no carnivorous scarab beetles.
Okay, okay.
So that is a plus. Limited sand.
Good.
You only make that mistake in a program once. Yeah, well, it was funny, I was saying this, I think, to Richard the other day, I'm a librarian because of the mummy, I'm a public librarian because I was a camp counselor. So I think those pieces of where, what does match is that like curiosity, there's always more to know. I mean, I can't say for sure that there is not a mummy inside of the 25-year time capsule, so
We'll find out.
we'll find out.
Okay,
But yeah,
let's hope not.
all of the good things.
When does that get opened up?
It'll be in August.
Oh
my gosh.
Yeah, we'll have a little bit more information next month.
Okay, so I'm a cornball.
Yeah.
So have you done any programs related to the mummy in your tenure?
Ooh, that's a good one.
No, but she will now.
I know. Thank you for the idea.
Yeah. Not explicitly.
Oh.
That's a really interesting one.
Mhm.
I mean, we did, we had a monster movie marathon a couple of years ago around Halloween, and Sharon and I were like, we have to do the mummy. So I got that in.
Okay.
It's just very specific.
I see a future program coming up our way, yeah.
No sand though.
No
You said
sand,
only
no
once.
sand, no.
Yeah.
That's a new rule here, no sand.
Well, thank you both for your service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It passes unanimously. On to page 47, projected year-end income statement, and this one does not need to be approved, Richard.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I think I highlighted some of the kind of key points in my memo, and hopefully the projected income statement makes sense. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a projection. These aren't actual final numbers on the fiscal year or anything like that. We're just trying to get an early look at where we might end the fiscal year, and so Allison did a great job of preparing this. I just want to note, Allison kind of pulled out the last column there of the GOF projected year-to-date versus everything else, like that includes the reserve spending and the reserve interest and the art acquisition spending. So I thought that was a helpful highlight on that sheet, just to give you an idea of what the GOF is doing, not just the whole picture itself. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, the summary statement is that we're looking good. We should end the year in a healthy spot, and hopefully after Allison and I analyze it a little further with the final numbers and we await the last of the spring tax collections, we'll give the board a sense of what may be possible for or recommended for a transfer from the GOF to the reserve fund, maybe in June. That's normal time when the board considers that action. So, but we believe that there will be possible. So, yeah, but happy to answer any questions.
I just wanted to talk about the expenditures, because when I look at what we projected and where we're going to land, we definitely I don't want to say over budget, but like we're under what we anticipated. So just trying to understand like where that difference is really coming from and how we're leveraging that information into the next year's budget.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak about a few things there, but a general statement about that is, like the budget is a projection, right? And we don't know what's going to happen during the course of the fiscal year. In regards to salaries, there was savings there essentially because we had some departures that we didn't fill immediately, and some that we haven't filled at all, for 2024. So even a handful of those positions, if they're full-time positions, yeah, exactly, it adds up. So there's quite a bit unspent there. But by the way, I want to clarify, we haven't implemented, obviously, the board hasn't implemented, and we haven't implemented any kind of hiring freeze or anything. I'm not suggesting that. It's more of strategically, we look at, every time someone leaves, we look at the position and we decide, try to assess, where do we need, help among our entire staff and our organization, and then we strategically, post positions. So, in some cases, it's, wait and see is the best answer, and we wanna not be wasteful and kind of, too quick to fill positions that we think maybe, are not needed as our needs change. So that's just a more detailed explanation about that. In regards to like programming, that'll be underspent a little bit. When the budget was created, we planned for a large public exhibition exhibit, basically during the course of the year, where we would bring in like an existing exhibit, like a big, exhibit like from a different source. And
I forgot.
yeah,
Yeah, I
we
remember.
talked about that, and the staff explored that, and we ended up actually designing our own kind of like efforts, like with the Skokie Yearbook project that's coming up that was mentioned in the strategic plan. But and we put some of that money into, we spent some money on custom program tables that we're going to use for future exhibits. That came on a different line as well. So that programming line was underspent a little bit. Collections, I think, collections might actually come out more even than we initially projected when we were creating this statement. So that's that. Where else?
It says patron resources, we underspent by 174,000. What did we not spend, what did we not purchase that we were?
Programming thing is a chunk of it, and then collections. But I spoke with Annabelle, our access services manager, yesterday or the day before, and after another conversation with her, I think we actually might end up the year more fully spent on collections than we thought a week or two ago. So we'll see. Again, we have to kind of wait to see how everything cleans out at the end of April. But the vast majority of it is going to be under salaries.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Under expenditures, can you give me some examples of management?
Yeah.
It just seems such a broad category.
Yeah, it's actually, if you look at the, I know we're not there yet, but on the budget lines, Allison, correct me if I'm wrong here, because Allison looks at this more closely, but things like professional services, right, Allison, business expenses and fees, what else here? Contingency, the reception of meetings, that's included, right? Audit, things like that. They're not salary, they're more, it's not management of the people, it's more of a function of management and administration.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, let's move on to quarterly investment update on page 49. Richard or Allison?
Yeah, this is also self-explanatory, really. It's just the, we provide this every quarter. You can see the balances. Just a reminder that Allison and I, when we think of this now, we switch to not only looking at the reserve fund interest gained, but the interest gained on the general fund, as well as even the art acquisition fund. We switched banking to primarily North Shore Community Bank with Trust, and benefited from higher interest rates across the board on all of our accounts. So they're all interest-bearing accounts now. So, Allison, is there anything else you wanted to mention regarding that?
No, I mean, our interest rates have held. I know there was talk last year about the interest rates falling. It was all over the news everywhere. Ours have held pretty steady, so that was unexpected. I was kind of anticipating them to fall, at least a basis point, but so that's
good.
lucky. Good for us.
Good, yeah. Especially on our tax account, because we carry a large balance on when we get an infusion of our tax revenue, so that's always nice to see that capture a high interest rate.
So all of our accounts are basically in very stable, low-risk things, right? We're talking like savings accounts, CDs, like nothing that would reflect any market volatility that is happening.
We have nothing invested in.
Okay,
That's part of our investment policy is, safety is the highest criteria really.
Just-
so.
I'm just double checking.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, like,
Yeah. We don't have anything that is,
Like roller coasters.
no, they're all exactly what you said, very interest-bearing savings accounts, CDs, that kind of thing.
I love the description. They're very vanilla.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have no pistachio in here.
No.
That's good.
Yeah.
Any other questions? This also does not require board approval, just for our information. All right, then let's move on. Page 52, this does require approval of the rescission of the public service policy and guidelines.
As I mentioned in my memo, Amy, our Director of Public Services, and I looked through this, and Laura was there too, and we looked through this older policy. As you all know, throughout the years, we were doing like a, step-by-step inventory of our entire policy, collection of policies, and I think we're very close to basically completing a thorough analysis of everything, and we're in really good shape with our policies. This is one that has been carried over for a long time, and looking at it, it really just states kind of obvious customer service expectations that are built into what we use for our training and onboarding and our job descriptions and our the ALA Code of Ethics talks a little bit about this stuff, and it's not really on the policy side of things, it's more training guidelines side of things, less policy, more guidelines, so we didn't really feel like it was appropriate for there to be a policy on providing good customer service. It's kind of a given that we would strive for that. And a lot of this stuff is also built into like the privacy and confidentiality section G is actually, most of it is reworked and already reflected and built into the new patron privacy and confidentiality policy that the board approved a few months ago. So after looking at this more, we really felt that we could safely rescind this policy or recommend rescission of this policy, and then Amy has already started actually. Do you want to talk a little bit about your efforts to kind of solidify, make more consistent our training guidelines?
Yes. So as Richard noted, a lot of what's in this older policy is customer service guidelines, and it's actually out of date for the sorts of approaches we've been taking and the expectations for staff in how we train them around customer service. So that's a piece that I've been working on with all of the public-facing supervisors and their teams to look at, all right, here's what our approach is, here are some desk and space-specific guidelines of what it looks like to put those in practice. I'm happy to share, this is a draft, it is not pretty formatted yet. Van hasn't gotten a hand on it yet, and I have copies for everybody. Just a peek at what the overarching customer service expectations and standards are for staff. That my next step is developing an updated training module that'll be part of onboarding for all staff, and then a first time everyone will take it as a refresher regardless of how long they've been here. But really focusing on providing customer service that is polite, prompt, personal, and precise, and that those values can look in different ways depending the age of the person you're serving, the type of request, the space they're in. So this gives us the flexibility that we see with all of the different ways people are using the library now and the type of service they're expecting. So this is a much more up-to-date framework with new and improved job aids to go along with it so that staff know exactly. We don't quite say, this is the exact phrase you use when you answer the phone, like this old one did, but it gives you everything you need to provide the service that our public expects of us.
Think this helpful.
Yeah, really.
We're not throwing away the idea that we want to provide good customer
Not at all.
service.
Because there's nothing objectionable in the policy or
No,
Mr. saying, but I can see where this incorporates.
Not really a
better.
policy for the board level, right?
Yeah, I guess that would be my only question, like, I totally understand why this doesn't necessarily need to be a public-facing policy. My only question is, has anyone, this was adapted in what, 2015? Has anyone from the public ever referenced this policy
We
when
never
making a
referenced
complaint
this,
or
no.
talking to you about anything?
We,
Okay,
I think that's a great question, and that's one of the questions that we ask when we evaluate a policy is, when's the last time we ever referenced it? You know, and if the
Yes.
answer is we don't remember, that means it's
Okay.
probably not like a
Yeah,
policy
right.
that's.
I figured as much, but
yeah.
I did, if you were to say something like, oh yeah, you know, people are referencing this every other
Right,
month, then I would
right.
strongly question why we're getting rid of the
Right,
policy.
right,
But
right.
if no one is referencing it or calling to complain, you know, that somebody didn't follow the, like, I,
Right. Yep.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Now, can I have a motion to approve the rescission of the public service policy and guidelines?
Can I say something?
Actually,
Okay,
no,
all right.
I'll talk with you after the meeting.
Okay.
Sorry, we're in the middle of a public process, but thanks, Mark, I'll chat with you after. So, motion to approve the rescission.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving along, 2 items left, approval of the FY 2025-26 budget. Page 57. Richard?
Yes, thank you. So obviously, one of the board's responsibilities each year is to approve and adopt a budget for the next each fiscal year. As you know, I've been providing previews or projections of the budget in February and in March. And I outlined or bullet pointed some of the changes that were made to the budget since the March version of the budget that was provided to the board. I'm happy to speak more on specifically on any of these points, but Allison and I work on this budget with a lot of other input from Laura and many of our management team members and different staff to construct this budget. We think that this budget is going to give us what we need to continue to provide great services to our community, obviously, and operate the library at a high level, taking care of our facility, our staff, and all the costs that go into running a public library. I want to point out on page 59, we did a little bit. Allison and I were looking at this when we were preparing this document, and we decided that it was best to change the layout a little bit. So I just want to note that for a second. So at the top, you see projected revenue. That's basically, consider that like new money coming in for the fiscal year. Projected expenditures is what it sounds like in terms, mostly for our general operations, but also it includes the 2019 bond debt repayment for the year. And that leaves us with a budget shortfall based on what we expect to receive and what we expect to spend. Then following that, you see the utilization of existing funds, and we decided to group that and label it that way, so it's very clear that this is not new money that's coming in for the fiscal year, like from tax collections or interest or anything like that. This is existing money in our funds that we plan to utilize to, one, pay for the budget shortfall, cover the budget shortfall of 300,000, and then as well as cover our expected expenditures for capital improvement projects, the art acquisitions, and a potential transfer later in, at some point in the year from the GOF to the reserve fund. This year, you saw the projected income statement that we just talked about, we didn't budget for a transfer. We'll end up having something to transfer, so that's good news. But we want to start the practice of actually budgeting for a transfer so that it's not kind of like a cross our fingers and hope it's there, but really planning for it so that it can continue to build our reserve fund and so that the funds are there when we need to implement all the capital improvements that are outlined in our capital assets study that the board reviewed a few months ago. So hopefully that's clear. What the budget ask then is, for the adoption and approval of the budget, is the total amount of not only the expenditures for operating in the bond debt repayment, but also for the utilization of all those existing funds. So I think that's important to state, because when the auditors come and look at that, they're gonna wanna see what has the board authorized in totality, not just for the GOF, from the GOF, so hope that's clear. Again, I'm happy to kind of go drill into a specific budget line again, or explain any of the adjustments that were made from last month.
I would just confirm that this is our budget based on the information we have now. Given the current economy, between grants being canceled and the market going crazy, it's certainly possible during this year our projected revenues could decline, but we, as you can come to the board and revise the budget during the year. So we're passing this based on what we know today. Should things change drastically, we can also amend the budget during the year, so we're not locked in on this regardless.
That's right. It's helpful also to mention, to your point, Gene, that historically, no one has a crystal ball, of course, but historically, the revenue from property tax local property taxes has been pretty much like a rock solid through COVID, recessions, everything. So hopefully, there's nothing that happens in the world as we know it that would threaten that. Obviously, that's the hope. But you're right. Like even interest, who knows what's going to happen as we renew CDs. Even we don't know what interest rates we're going to receive later down in the year. So.
Other questions?
I just wanted to make sure I understood two lines. The second line where it says insurance, health, dental, and life, and then maybe about 10 to 12 lines down, there's another line for insurance. So is that second insurance line, is that more or less like the building, like the?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand the different insurance.
Okay, on the line by line budget.
Yes, please.
The insurance, health, dental, and life obviously is obviously health, dental, and life, and includes vision as well. And the other insurance is liability, property, cyber, directors and officers. So it covers the business insurance is how I think of it.
Okay, because both of those are projected obviously to go up, and those increases are basically in line with the information that you have received from either the policy creators, or for example, with the second insurance line, obviously the group that we work with to provide that to our employees.
So both the health insurance and the business insurance renewals don't happen until the very the last quarter of the year, basically. Okay. So that information is not, been given to us.
Okay.
But it's a projection of what we've seen in recent years.
Okay.
And kind of building in a cushion for us to absorb some of that. The health insurance is an interesting thing to try to calculate because it includes May through December, so 8 months of this calendar year. We already know our health insurance premiums and our costs for that. But when we find out the renewal for 2026, 4 months of the fiscal year will be whatever that's renewed at, right? So
I see.
if there's an increase there, that will be added to what we know is kind of the expected cost for the 8 months, first 8 months of the fiscal year. So it's kind of like piecing together what we know and partially what we think might happen next year or, yeah, so it's really it's a projection, you know?
Okay,
Yeah.
no, that makes sense, like, obviously I look at every line, but the ones that I pay the most attention to are the largest line items, because that impacts the budget the
Yeah.
most, and then the biggest swings, so I am automatically looking at the salary
Yeah,
line, the various insurances, because, those have the biggest potential to
That's how we
impact.
tackle it
Yeah.
too, yeah, for
Okay.
sure, yeah.
So when I see insurance going up 19%, obviously just wanting to understand a sense of that and understanding the difference, but now I understand the
Yeah.
two different lines.
Unfortunately, we're just living in a time right now when the insurance market for both health insurance and business insurance is a hard market, you know, so like I couldn't sit here and tell you that those costs are gonna go down or remain flat. It's just not, I don't think that'll happen, so how much they'll go up is the question, you know.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the other lines make sense, like where you have taken decreases, it's clearly based on the logic of where we landed or where we're projecting to land this year. So a lot of that makes a lot of sense to me, so,
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
yeah, sure.
Other questions, comments? If not, can I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025-26 budget as presented?
Second,
All in favor? Money, so individually, Mary,
yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Hula,
Yes.
Ella.
Yes.
Alright, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, Richard.
And thank you, Allison, for
Yeah, thank
all
you.
the prep work and lots of hours put into this and
It's stressful.
and Laura
Yeah.
participating in all the conversations and many others who helped prepare the budget. So it's a group effort.
All right, brings us the last item, comments from trustees. First, I just want to acknowledge the very nice lunch for all the volunteers over the weekend. So thank you for all you guys who organized and came and attended that. But it seemed well received. Hope everybody was happy with that.
Thank you for all your service as trustees.
Yes. Second, the sad part, we have to say goodbye to two of our board members tonight. Last meetings for Will and Amanda, and that's hard. So thank you both for all your service. It's been
Thank you. I just want to say very briefly, it has been an absolute honor to serve in this capacity. I was telling Michelle that I've learned so much more than I probably gave, and I'm completely just in awe of every one of you and all the work that goes into making this place such an incredible resource and hub of love and community. And I'm grateful, so thank you. Yeah, this is not goodbye. Exactly. I'm still here too, yeah, this is not goodbye, that's all I have to say. Yeah, I really appreciate getting to know everyone around the table here. You're all such wonderful people, and we're neighbors, so you know where to find me.
Yeah. And we have something that, do you have it here or can we?
other board members want to say, or staff want to say. Opportunity.
I just want to say thank you. I mean, you say I've learned so much from you. I've always appreciated, you find the perfect words to say in every situation. You're such an eloquent speaker, and I just love everything you say. And Boone, you're always so, you hone in on this stuff, and you're so succinct, and you're so good with all the details. So I've appreciated having you both here.
There's so much more I want to give, but in the future, hopefully that will happen.
Yeah.
We have a little-
Hi.
token of our appreciation.
Oh
No, that's just a small token of our appreciation, just to remember your service. Yeah. Thank you, yeah.
I would say, well, I really appreciate your expertise in drilling down on numbers and contracts and grants, I mean, that's unparalleled.
It's just life, you know, things I've been.
Now your skill set and sort of the opposite, your contribution, just to me, your whole world perspective, you know, as a news editor and everything. And after, I bet you're the only board member we've ever had that's fluent Swahili. As often as that came up.
Gotta be someone. Thank you.
You're both offered had such unique talents you brought to the board.
Thank you. So awkward.
I'll say one more positive thing. I'm in a pickleball league, and a senior citizen who's in the league with me approached me because he knows I'm on the library board, and he got assistance from somebody at the library on help with his cell phone, some technology assistance, and he said it was great, and he was so grateful that he lives in Skokie and had the help of the library. He was just so excited to get help with his cell phone, so I think that's really, really great.
I will pass that along to the team. Thank you.
Yes.
I would have guessed that would have been my father, but he doesn't like pickles.
It was just yesterday, he's like, that library, I was like, I know, I know.
Any other comments from board members? Not gonna have a motion to adjourn. Motion.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
I
Meeting is adjourned.